The following program contains strong language. Listener discretion is advised.
Kia ora, I'm Claire Finlayson, Program Director of the Dunedin Writers and Readers Festival. The 2019 festival recording that you're about to hear was brought to you with funding from a Copyright Licensing New Zealand grant and with the support of OAR FM. This session, Funny, featuring Leah McFall and Michèle A'Court, was chaired by Liz Breslin. Enjoy.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I would first of all like to acknowledge the tangata whenua of Ōtepoti and the Dunedin Art Gallery, the Dunedin Writers and Readers Festival, and of course the UBS Bookshop, from whom you can buy all the books that are on the table just outside there at the conclusion of this session. This session is going to be an hour long. We have got 50 minutes of talking with our wonderful speakers here, after which we've got 10 minutes of audience questions. That is from you guys. We will have microphones for you to do that, just in case you get microphone anxiety. You can spend the next 50 minutes worrying about that if you would like to. Great. So it falls to me next to introduce our speakers for today. We have here Leah McFall, who has previously worked for RNZ, TVNZ and the NZSO, lots of acronyms there, and is currently a columnist for the SST, also known as the Sunday Star Times. She says that she writes about small suburban real-time observations that include such things as scrunchies, sitting like a duchess, cervix donuts, postnatal anxiety, and how she would deal with the queer eye guys over the dinner table. So lots to be getting on with there. Her columns have been collected together into a book called Karori Confidential, which is published by Lunch and Sausage Books. She is not, in case you want to Google her, the Belfast-born second place getter in The Voice UK.
Aww. She is the bane of my existence.
Yes.
She's got the Instagram, well. She's got my name, she's got the blue tick on Twitter.
She's got a lovely new song called Freckles as well, which I suggest you don't check out. Check out the book. It's called Karori Confidential. She is also my friend Lindsay's favourite columnist. My friend Lindsay couldn't be here today, so me and Leah agreed that it was appropriate to bring Lindsay along and let her sit in the audience. So welcome, Lindsay.
Yay, Lindsay. Thanks, Lindsay.
There we go.
Nice hair.
Yes, she's looking lovely. Michèle A'Court. Michèle has been being funny since 1993 officially, and a lot longer than that. She was named Comedian of the Decade in 2010, and she likes to think that she has a portfolio career, which includes also being a columnist in Your Weekend. She's a TV and radio commentator. Of course, because we are at a writers' festival, it would be remiss not to mention her books as well, both published by HarperCollins. Stuff I Forgot to Tell My Daughter is there. The most important teenagers in my life know this book as the one where the guy sticks his dick in the mashed potato to remind you that it's not worth sleeping with boys just because they want to sleep with you.
I love that.
Yes.
If they reprint, that's going on the back cover.
Yeah, it's a good life lesson. Also, How We Met, which was published again by HarperCollins in 2018, which has been described as an indulgent treat with sprinkles and laughter. But I would like to say also it's gentle and gently funny, a force for good in the world. So thank you very much for both of you being here to talk about being funny and writing funny. So I guess first question, what is the importance of funny in writing?
It's the thing that makes it light. It's the thing that makes it dance, isn't it? It's there's a Dario Fo theory that if you make people laugh, it opens their minds and lets ideas in, and I think that's part of what it's about.
It's the guiding principle of everything I enjoy. It's what I read again. I'll read a humour writer 10, 20 times. I'll read the same person for life. I'm very loyal to them because when somebody makes you laugh, especially in print, there's an intimacy about print. When someone makes you laugh, it's very releasing, there's something really releasing about it, something that that makes you feel less fearful in a way about being in the world. And I think that humour is quite underrated critically. There's not a lot of critical recognition for humour writing as such, because the best kind of humour writing is, do you find it's effortless to read.
Yeah.
So I think people assume that it's artless to write, you know, oh, they're funny, this must be easy for them. But I think that there is real craft and real dignity in humour writing that isn't often acknowledged. So for me, they've always been my favourite writers and the ones I actually find quite profound and will return to, whereas I might not return to, like, you know, Tolstoy or something. I might only read that once.
I know that Irma Bombeck is a favourite writer of yours and mine too. And the wisdom that you get out of writers like that is amazing, right? So I can remember being really little and searching through my mother's book collection, and she had lots of reference books for some reason, encyclopedias. I don't know who knocked on the door. And one of the books that I really loved was the Oxford Dictionary of Humorous Quotations. And to me that was, you know, philosophy 101. Inside all of those quips and witticisms was how the world works. So there's a lot of wisdom wrapped up in those funny bits.
And also, I think we underestimate how witty writers use humour as a tactic. You know, Caitlin Moran, who actually I think you remind me, I think you two, you get on.
Oh, I
you
think
know,
so.
you two,
I'd
so great.
I'd like a gin.
She's political, but she uses her humour. So she's very open about this. She says the humour, so she's, you know, a columnist, feminist, humorist, polemicist. She says that humour is a tax that she pays. Her jokes are a tax that she pays to win and hold your attention. So she, I'm sure, is naturally funny and effortlessly funny in person, but actually there's something quite important going on. She wants to change your mind. And I think that humour is very disarming like that. You sort of don't see it coming, you know. It's never in the front section of the paper, is it? We're always at the back.
Yep.
But actually it's very powerful. It's more powerful than we realise, I think.
The tax metaphor is lovely. I often think of stand-up comedy shows that I do as a Trojan horse. So you trick them into coming to a comedy show and convince them to smash the patriarchy by the end of it.
Sneaky.
The patriarchy's still there. It hasn't worked yet. But we're working on it.
But you're working on it. So using humour as a tool, when did you guys first know that you are funny? You are funny. When?
Well, actually, I don't want to sound like I'm avoiding the question, but I think it's sort of not up to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel that funny. The people in my life don't really acknowledge, that was really funny. You know, that's not how I live a really quiet suburban life. Not a lot happens to me. You've read my columns, you're aware of that. But I just seem to have got a knack for finding funny people. Like, all of my friends, never the funniest person in the room. My friends are all so quick to laugh, or they're really quick to make me laugh. They're just funny people. When I'm in the school playground picking up the kids, I will somehow find the funniest parent there, because funny people are everywhere. They're just everywhere. I just seem to be very receptive to those people. In my family, I'm not the wisecracking one at the table. You know, that's my brother. My brother is effortlessly funny. My dad, who's a plumber, retired now, is a really gifted mimic. He's a fantastic sort of character actor, and he would come home every day and he would imitate his clients. So funny is a guiding principle. It's a way of life. I did not realise that I could make a living out of wit, because my columns aren't funny every week. They're not. Until I was offered this job. And the embarrassing thing is, I was offered this job at the age of 43, and I needed permission. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that's the case for me, but that's the God's honest truth. Until I got that call, it wouldn't have occurred to me to do what Michèle does, to attempt to make anyone in this room laugh for money.
So you feel like you've needed permission to be the funny one in the room?
Yeah.
And how about you, Michèle?
Humour, funny storytelling had huge currency in my family. So I had a great uncle Frank on my mother's side, and my brother and I spent all our holidays, school holidays with them and summer holidays, and it was like going to a show for a couple of weeks, and Frank would tell wonderful stories. So, and I was the funny one at the dinner table. That was my job. My job was to be the fixer of any unpleasantness or tension by saying something hilarious, and I got rewarded for doing that very early, and then working in tandem with my grandmother Edith, who was also hilarious, quite acerbic. She could be quite cutting and robust in her humour. So she and I would do a sort of double act from when I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. So that was my job in my family, was to be the funny one.
And you picked up on that as a way of melding relationships.
Easing tension, and turning turning uncomfortable situations into comfortable ones.
Yeah, right. So when you are creating the funny situations, let's say, I know that you have experience creating them on the stage, doing your stand-up. You also have experience doing them on the page. And stuff to tell your daughter was both the page and the stage. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the differences in creating humour in those situations?
So the book happened after the show. After my daughter left home, I literally ran around the house going, oh my God, there's so many things I didn't tell her. It's too late now. It's not too late, but I thought I would write a show about all of those things. So it was a stand-up show with it was a Trojan horse. It had a little bit about the history of feminism tucked in the middle of it. Hilarious. And and then lovely Finlay MacDonald at HarperCollins said, why don't you turn that show into a book? And I went, that'll be easy. I'll just write the show down. It's a 1-hour show. I'll write that down. That's a book. And a book is about 70,000, 80,000 words. And I wrote the show down and it was 20,000 words. I have to write some more. But it was really interesting to see the difference between, you can't just transcribe stand-up onto the page. It doesn't work for the mind's eye. Stand-up has to sound like you just thought of it. That's the trick with stand-up. This is an idea that has just occurred to me for the very first time, and I'm telling you about it now. And you layer those phrases over each other, and you use repetition of words. Lots of those things you use pauses and facial expressions, and you can't use any of those on the page. And I think, if I'm right about this, that writing funny, it has to read like you took care to place the words in the right order and pick the perfect word for it, which is really similar in... stand-up, you do choose the right word in the right order, but you have to make it sound like I'm talking now, which is to begin a whole lot of sentences and eventually one of them will end. So it was a really interesting exercise for me, and the language written has to be more formal, and some words work and some words don't on the page that work really well on the stage. I also had to take on stage I say fuck a lot. That's FAARK, and you can't use too many of those in a book. So I had to find other ways of doing powerful expletives in the book. There's a lot of oh good lords in there.
Great. And how does that sit with your experience, Leah, of putting the funny on the page?
It's that is fascinating to me, because the last thing I would do is the idea makes me anxious imagining delivering a joke even at a dinner party. Do you know what I mean? I could never do it. I would fluff the line. I can't even read the in a Christmas cracker, even those jokes, those crappy one-line jokes, I just can't seem to hit my mark. So, but funnily enough, when I'm writing a column that I'm hoping is funny or will be received lightly or will be entertaining, is I just find that I tone is so important. So that's what if I can get the tone right, then I can sort of relax when I'm writing the piece. So, and what I've learned over the columns I've written, I haven't been in the game that long, about 3 years now, is that the columns that I enjoy writing and seem to be really well received are, the tone is that we're already friends. Do you know what I mean? So I'm writing to the reader directly, I'm addressing that person directly, I'm assuming we have a past together. The best friends that you have, everyone's got a friend like this, is when you're with them, they, when you've been with them, you feel light, you feel a bit happier about things, you feel good about yourself, you feel less fearful about the future, but you have revealed something about yourself that's just a little bit, it's not that flattering, that you wouldn't tell most people, and they have accepted that and they've been completely unshockable. There's nothing about you that grosses them out and they're like, oh my God, you think that's bad? Wait till you hear this. So that's what I'm trying to achieve. And when I've got into that register, I find that I write the way, I hope I do, write the way I speak.
Yeah.
So there are natural pauses for breath. There is a music to a funny sentence. I can't even explain it, but I would like to think that if an actual close friend of mine was reading a column, they'd go, yeah, I can hear her voice. Like,
yes.
That's who she is.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that it sort of starts for me with tone. You can, because the other thing is with writing weekly is you've built up an expectation in the reader. When they get to Michèle's page, they already know that she's unpredictable. They don't know what she's going to be writing about, what she's going to say. They know how they're going to feel. They're coming to that page with that knowledge and that safety. She's a friend. And I think that's so important. You've got to relax and feel okay. You've not got to feel safe to laugh. Do you know what I mean? It's quite subconscious. Like, these aren't things you're thinking about when you're, drinking your coffee on a Sunday, reading the paper. But I think that's going on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Writing in your own voice, writing to a friend.
Yeah.
So if I have real struggles with, most of my columns start with me being pissed off about something. And sometimes that anger blocks everything. So I have a particular friend who lives in Vancouver who loves me, trusts me, will let me say anything. So I imagine talking to her and how would I express this to her. Yeah. So that's totally. But
how anger, because I find that so interesting because so much good comedy is angry underneath. And you're really upset about something. How do you, because I'm cross, don't get me wrong, I'm cross. But I don't have that ability. I'm not very good at arguing. I'm not very good at persuading people to my point of view. I'm really interested to know, because you do that so successfully, I think. You make a point, a really strong point. It's often a controversial point, but you don't alienate anyone. I'm really intrigued because I think a lot of really, really smart humorists are really angry.
Yeah, I'm quite angry.
Yeah.
I'm really angry, Liz. No, I'm not. But I do get furious. That's where pretty much everything I've ever written, either a stand-up piece or a column, comes from. Like, I always think that my columns begin with, or the good ones, begin with a invisible, silent, oh, all right then. And then here's the thing that's pissed me off. And forgive me for saying this, but I quite often type this at the end of a column and then obviously delete it. It will finish with, so fuck you. And I think sometimes you can see that it's still there.
One time, do you just want to leave it in and see if you can get it past the editor? And then everyone in this room, we will be the people who know, and we'll be like, yeah. Shall we hear you guys read some of your writing aloud, since we've just been speaking about hearing your voices? Because I'm sure in this room there's a lot of people who've read your work and not had the experience of hearing you read it aloud. So I think this would be a really nice point to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Oh, good deciding. Otherwise we might have to have an arm wrestle or something.
She's got my back.
And I don't know if I've chosen the right bit, and I don't know how far I'm going to get along reading it. But this is a piece. Oh,
I'll just know it's
Do
fine.
they need you?
It's all good.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
It was the turn your phones off bit. I just didn't, yeah.
so this is a piece that I wish I could. One of the things I didn't say is that I write things on the paper that I would quite like to take to the stage, and I've very rarely been able to do that. Once I've written them, I can't seem to do them on stage. It works the other way round. But anyway, so this is a piece that I quite like. And it was about, I don't know how to, okay. What I like to do, I'll just read it.
Yes. Yes.
Hi, everybody. What I like to do to give my lady brain a holiday is imagine that in some parallel universe things are different from the way they are. Not necessarily different better, just different. I find it amusing and sometimes illuminating to imagine boots on other feet. For example, I like to imagine that in opposite world there's a men's group who are up in arms. We're up in arms, a male spokeswoman would say. We're tired of the constant criticism about the way we dress, as though what we wear says more about us than our behaviour or what comes out of our mouths. It's just a shirt and trousers. We all wear them. It makes us feel part of a group. However, conservative members of the matriarchy say it's easy to misread the social cues presented by the shirt-trouser combination. We're not saying they're all bad eggs, a spokeswoman said, but it's a simple fact that 99% of men who are up to no good wear a shirt and trousers while they're doing it. So it's fair to assume that when a man is seen wearing a shirt and trousers, he is up to no good. Also of concern to men's rights activists is the suggestion that men should no longer be allowed to socialise. However, lots of talkback hosts say it's just logic. A lot of women like to wear skimpy clothes, drink cocktails and dance. It's their way of letting off steam and enjoying themselves. Unfortunately, men are easily confused by this behaviour and trouble ensues, one said. We thought about asking women to stop it. I know. We realised how ridiculous that sounded too. So now we're just discouraging men from being in social situations. And that's settled too.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much. Do you feel a little less angry now you've got that?
Yeah,
good.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's
yes.
good. I love just being able to sometimes flip the gender around to show how absurd it is. I think I wrote that piece around the Roastbusters time when, people say, what was she wearing? And, women wearing short skirts, what are they? Men can't help themselves. What is... And you just go, oh, God, can you hear yourselves? So, and no, they can't. So flipping it around, I hope, shows how ridiculous that is.
Absolutely. It's the thing they talk in writers' classes about show not tell, don't they? They say show not tell. And it's like you were saying, that shows so clearly the point of view. And so it brings people along. I mean, we all laugh at the absurdity of it. And then we're like, oh, yeah, that's right.
That's actually what we do.
But because you're laughing, you're sort of in a safe space to be learning along with it. And you do that. And then you twist the knife a little bit, and then the patriarchy goes down, and we all live happily ever after. Yeah,
in flames.
Yes,
and that's the other thing that I you asked about the power of humour. Laughter exists it's a social construct, really, and it's what it is all of us signalling to the other humans that we are with that we are thinking the same thought, and that's the most powerful thing we can do is go, I'm thinking what you're thinking, and I feel the same way in this moment.
Yeah. Lovely. Leah, shall we hear from you?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, where am I? Yes, I'm not going to read a whole column. Okay. Just looking at the crowd, I think I might read about the royals. Is that all right?
Oh, wait, no, I want to know more. Say more about that. Looking at the crowd.
Yeah,
I might read about the royals.
Sorry.
Let's just go there for a second before
I
you
just
start.
had two pieces in mind. One's about sex. I'm thinking it's a little bit early. A little bit early for that.
No. Okay, hands up who has ever had sex.
Oh, shall I read the sex one? No.
Yes, we've all had sex.
No. Okay, you guys decide.
Okay, hands up. Yes, I love that. Democratic. Hands up, please, for the sex column. Hands up for the royals column. No, it's sex, actually. Sorry.
Well, I walked right into that one.
Didn't you, though?
I'm not going to read all of it. You'll be glad that I haven't. So this column was called Not Getting Any. A sex shop has opened in our building, Usha said a couple of weeks ago, and a hush fell over the office. It's between Subway and the donut place.
Oh, that's so perfect. So perfect. You're a genius.
You live for days like that at the office when someone walks in and says that. God, just love being alive on days like that. I tried to process what this meant, apart from giving a whole new meaning to the term. I'm just popping down for a footlong. Does anybody want anything? I surveyed my colleagues. Most of us had nothing on our minds but the sushi we'd be having for lunch. Was there really a market here for nipple clamps? What would I know? Sex used to be all I could think about, mainly because I wasn't getting any. Today, as a suburban mother of two, employed inside and outside the home, fighting a doomed offensive against laundry, clutter, deadlines and appointments, I've become something less than bootylicious. I have one lipstick, no scent. I buy my knickers in a 5-pack at Farmers. I might as well be on the bench in a neck brace for all the game I'm getting. And I'm not the only one. Most of us in our 40s are bottoming out on the U-bend that is midlife. Down here at the nadir of the happiness curve, there's precious little in the way of slap or tickle. We're too occupied shuttling between the school run and the team meeting, Angelina, ballerina and soccer tots, the kitchen and the laundry. If you're anything like me, the most pleasing vibration in your week is the gentle Annie on a hot wash. I think we'll stop there.
You've got to love a good gentle Annie, though. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I just want to backstep a little bit to something that you said just before, and you said that you don't know how to do jokes, not even jokes out of the Christmas crackers. Yeah. And I have read, and I cannot remember where, Michèle, something that you've written about funny not actually being jokes
out of the Christmas cracker,
yeah,
or jokes.
Or jokes in general. And
because I can't do that either.
Yeah, and do you want to just talk a little bit about that, the difference between funny and jokes?
Yeah, so, and I'm not funny at parties. I might be. I'm good at tequila shots. But I'm terrible at telling jokes, and I screw up the punchline, and if there's a key word, I'll get too anxious, and if the key word is orange, I'll say Tangelo. So I'm terrible. But I don't think that that's what funny is. And jokes for me are, men tell them, forgive me, but men tell jokes. Mm-hmm. And that's not about them being funny. That's about them saying, I once heard a guy who was funny, and I am repeating what he said. And so funny people, and men are funny people too, are people who make the stuff up on the fly. And, every word in that, just the fact that it's Subway and donuts is brilliant, right? So you're very funny, and you can smell the joke from, where the funny is. So, being able to tell a joke is really unimportant and not a skill that anybody should pursue.
Right. Good. Well, I'm really pleased that we've cleared that up.
No, because I do think you're right. That is quite a profound observation, I think, about, because I find that more and more in midlife, because stuff really starts happening to you in midlife, like there's ill health, yours or someone else's, you start to lose people, you've got more skin in the game because you may have had children, and that sort of changes every cell in your body, and you feel things really profoundly. And I find that and also life is really boring a lot of the time. Like, it's a lot of waiting, it's a lot of queues, it's a lot of tax returns. And so I find that I need to smell the funny more than I ever have before. And actually at times, and that writing the column has actually made me very sensitive to this. I might not have noticed it before, but it's helped me. It's sort of the only thing that got me through something. So if I can mention that there's a column in the book that I don't like to read. I find it very painful to reread, and it's about hospital visiting. So my dad was he was dangerously ill about a few years ago, and he was in a bad way, and so he was in the high dependency unit at Wellington Hospital, and everyone in that ward was in a bad way. And anyone who's spent any time in hospitals with seriously ill people knows that time stands still, You feel every passing minute. It's sort of excruciating and really boring at the same time. And all you can do is wait. And I was literally sitting there watching this monitor with my dad's oxygen saturation levels. And I just was like, go up, because they were dangerously low. Anyway, so I thought to myself, you better take notes, Let's just turn this into an exercise. And so I started to kind of write down what I was hearing and the things that I was seeing. And there was this couple, this isn't that funny, but there was this couple, so it was like quite an elderly couple, and the husband was the patient and the wife was next to him, and there was a third person sitting there, and they were having a conversation, and they were just like me, just filling in time and just hoping something good was going to happen. And I heard this woman say to her husband, she was talking about some friends of theirs who had been on a Scandinavian cruise. And she was saying, yeah, well, so they saw the fjords, and they saw the puffins, and they saw, they saw the ice caps, and they saw the aurora borealis. They're back down to earth in Johnsonville now. And I thought to myself, that is freaking hilarious. And I just thought to myself, I wasn't in the state of mind where I could laugh out loud, and that would have been rude, but that's the moment you think, because I found that funny, and because I'm going to tell that story later, I've got a bit of hope today. I've got perspective. I can see through this.
Yeah.
And I just have a feeling that without it, I'd be in a lot of trouble.
So
that ability.
Yeah.
So humour then, not just as a defence mechanism, humour as a coping mechanism, humour as, like you said, that thing where you laugh together, as a sharing mechanism.
And a little bit more than that too. I don't think it's just a coping mechanism. It's what you were saying. It's about hope, because if you can find if you can find the thing in the darkest times to smile and inwardly laugh about, then it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do the same thing. I was with my dad when he died, and over those months, and now with my mother, and I keep notes of the hilarity that I'll use later. So it's helping me get through, but it's also giving me a really clear picture that life goes on.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that. Yeah. So is there anywhere or any topic or as writers, as performers, where humour has no place? Is there anywhere the mirror of humour should not be shone?
No. You can make a joke about anything, anywhere. It depends. My rule is punch up, not down.
Do you guys know what that means?
The butt of the joke needs to be the powerful person. So I would do jokes about race, but I wouldn't do racist jokes. I've written comedy sketches about rape. Hilarious.
Haha.
And so no, I don't think anything's off the table at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leah?
I agree. It's just so much a part of the human condition, but there is, I think you have to interrogate the intention, like where it's coming from. So I find, for example, that there's sort of chilly humour and there's warm humour. And the chilly humour is really efficient humour. And I think that the sort of shock jock culture comes into that. It's like, that's going to fill a stadium. That's going to shock people. That's going to get me publicity. It's almost like Excel spreadsheet comedy. And, for me, Jimmy Carr is someone like that. I just think, he's enormously successful. He's mega rich. He's got all his tax. He's already in a tax haven. He's got all his assets in a tax haven. I think, to me, there's no service in that. I think, as Michèle described, the kind of comedy that she tells with that sort of, the intention she has is very warm, and there is an element of service in it. And it can be quite an ambitious service, changing the world, dismantling power structures, shining a light like you did this morning, on people of colour, trans people. Like, those things are really, humour is a wonderful way to deliver those messages without alienating people. But you can tell pretty quickly, you know, whether someone's telling you what you just have an instinct for these things. One thing I would say though is that, and one of the challenges of writing a weekly column is that the mood of the country changes every week, and what's appropriate this week might not be appropriate next week. And I learnt that. I think we all did after the mosque attacks.
Yeah.
It's been extremely difficult to write lightly, because is it too soon for jokes? Is it too privileged to tell a joke? Do I have the right to mention this? Often with us, there's a long lead time when we file.
What's your lead time?
My lead time, so the magazine goes to print 10 days in advance.
Oh, shit.
So I'm filing 2 weeks in advance, which makes it really difficult.
Really hard.
So I can't write about that week.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I'd be very good at that either, but so what I found was when after the mosque attacks happened, my, I'd read 3 weeks worth of commentary before I felt I could write about it. And there was a story I told about a little boy in the playground who, the morning, the Monday after the attacks, and he said something to me that was incredibly profound and a real gut punch, and it was about race and power and childhood, and it was amazing. And he had brown skin, and that was integral to what he said to me. And I thought, it took me 2 weeks to decide, do I have permission to, is it appropriate for me to write? Am I exploiting this kid? Mm-hmm. When actually I think what he said was incredibly important. So you are constantly, I think, having to, even in a small, gentle way, ask yourself, is this the time?
Yeah, and what is it in service of? That's a lovely way that you framed it then. Yeah.
I'm 6 days now, lead time. Used to be 2 weeks. And it's such a good, what I think we've learnt then is that, you don't do that knee-jerk reaction that lots of columnists who can write and get it online within an hour do, because we have to think about not just the event but the things that led to it, all of the issues around it. Because you know that the news story is going to move on. My deadline's Monday at 5 o'clock and it comes out on Saturday morning. So the news... The story is going to change so much in those 5 days that I can't write about the event. I can only write about, like with the column this morning about Semenya, I had to write about not just a woman being told she had too much testosterone to run particularly, like she's okay.
Be angry, go.
Like she's allowed to be a woman if she runs longer than 800 metres. She's regarded as a woman, but if she runs 800 metres, which is her particular skill, she's not a woman. Fuck you.
Yes.
It's just ridiculous. Sorry. And I'm saying that because my word limit is 450 words, which didn't really give me time to say that part and be funny, and it just drives me insane. So what I really want to do every week when it comes out is to sit down and tell people all the things I didn't get to squeeze into my 450 words. What's your word limit?
450 words is brutal.
That's really cruel.
800 words.
Oh my God, I dream of 800 words.
I know, 800 words is a lot.
I used to have 600, and there's room for jokes.
Yeah.
And when they cut it, because now I do a side-by-side with my husband Jeremy, so now it's 450, and it's so hard to find the space for the joke now. So I haven't really written very funny columns for the last year, I think. I think they're mostly angry.
Well, we'd like to change the name of this session to Writing Angry and a little bit funny.
Oh, calm down now.
That is. I don't think I could write a 450
It's sort of wasting your time, really. Like you want to do a ballroom dance, but you feel like you're Morris dancing in 450 words. It's cruel. It's cruel. Anyway, that's
actually very different.
Blah, blah, blah.
Can we talk about, for you guys, I know you've mentioned some people who inspire you, Caitlin Moran, or don't inspire you, Jimmy Carr. So who are some other people that you would name check for us here that have been great inspirations to you both in terms of writing funny?
You go, because I'm terrible at proper nouns.
So I have a bunch. Sue Townsend was probably the Adrian Mole Diary. I was about 11 or 12, and that book was being passed around among the grown-ups, and then it went around Stratford Primary School. It was like contraband. Like, have you read this? There's a kid in here who's a year older than us. He measures this thing. And like, it's just so brilliant. It's just a satire. It's a brilliant political satire. And what I love about Sue Townsend's writing, is that she was angry. Mm-hmm. My God, she was angry in Thatcher's Britain. And she was poor, and she was a single parent, and she was living on 10p's. And she wrote a masterpiece. And the other thing is that men read her. Now, I know I'm not saying that makes her fabulous, but I think a female humorist, a public wit, writing for men and women is still pretty unusual. Mm. And I've sort of tried to think about that sort of over the course of the 20th century. Now it's a little different, thank God, because of, the digital age and the explosion in funny women online who aren't being held back. But the only other person I could think of, easily spring to mind, I could think of 10 men, was Dorothy Parker. Yeah. So the first public wit where men bought Vanity Fair to read her theatre reviews. Yeah. And it's like, that's interesting to me. Mm. I think I'm mainly read by women, and women, they're my people.
Lindsay loves you.
So Lindsay loves me. Yes. But I really want men to read me too. Mm. Because I feel that then I sort of punch through something. Mm-hmm. And it's not my only goal, it's just a goal.
Well, it's the opposite of preaching to the choir, isn't it? I mean, you want to reach the people who see the world not the way that you see it. That's the whole point of writing, really, isn't it? To give people a perspective that they don't get themselves. So yes, you do want to reach people who aren't you, and some of those people are men.
So Dorothy Parker, who else?
Dorothy Parker. Caitlin Moran is a massive hero to me, so that I was delighted when you said that I might be a little bit like her. Jenny Diskey, for some reason, and I don't know that she's necessarily funny now I'm thinking about her, but I just find her prose dances. And I loved Clive James very much when I was growing up. Rosemary McLeod and Tom Scott I would race home from school the day The Listener came out to read their, both columns and cartoons, which was, I thought all cartoonists were columnists and all columnists were cartoonists, because you'd open The Listener and there's Rosemary and Tom both doing cartoons and columns. I'm not necessarily a fan of Rosemary's work now, but those years when I was growing up, very much, hugely. My favourite book, I told you that my mother had reference books. My favourite book, and it's still, is the Century of Punch.
Oh yeah,
cartoons. Big. I've got it. My mother let me have it. It's huge, beautifully bound book. And the century, I think, was 1850 to 1950, and it's just this massive book full of cartoons, and that was so graphic. Visual humour was really huge for me.
For you as well.
Yeah, and Giles cartoons and
of course.
Yeah. So for the dark politics, that's everything I understand about UK politics comes from Giles cartoons.
Perfect. It's actually a really good guide.
Right? Yeah.
We could have Giles for Brexit. That would sort a few things out. Yeah.
Can I put in a little plug here for Diana Witchell?
Yeah. You can. Yes. Technically this is your panel, so you can do what you want. Yes.
Diana Witchell, to me, it's interesting. You talk about seminal people in The Listener. The Listener was a really culturally really important to, especially growing up in, pre-digital age in a small town. That's culture. I'll have that. And thing about Diana Witchell is, it's sort of, she's always, I feel, we take her for granted, her brilliance for granted. She, every week for donkey's years, she has filed the most crisp, precise, disciplined, brilliant TV reviewing, plus all of the profiles she writes. She does it she doesn't draw any attention to herself. And now, unfortunately, only the people who subscribe to The Listener read her regularly. So this is a sort of quiet brilliance, humorist, no one really notices. And then last year before, she publishes this memoir where she reveals that actually she is nursing this unbelievable survivor's guilt, the death of her, the memoir about the death of her father, who essentially was a Holocaust victim. And we discover that she is a genius, and she's getting critical recognition now for that memoir in a way that she didn't for her humour. But I don't think you can separate the two.
No.
There's tremendous pain there, and she's been making us laugh for years. So to me, that's an extraordinary lesson. We're so lucky to have the writers we do.
She's so talented, I quite like to stab her. She does all of it. It's really, the criticism and also the creative and the funny and the everything. And she's a really nice person.
I want to see.
I had a glass of wine with her one afternoon. It was really on the outside. I'm going, oh, it's lovely to meet you. I do love you. And on the inside, I'm going, oh God, what am I like?
Happy stabbing. Then you want to happy stab?
Yeah, happy stab her. Yeah. That's universal, isn't it? That you meet people who can do lots of things and you really admire them. You want to kill them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about that sitting here with both of you. I have to say, yeah. I'm really conscious of time, so I'm going to just one last question from me before we open it up for questions from you guys. Tips for aspiring funny people, writers.
Read everything. Read funny stuff. I mean, that's what I tell people who want to do stand-up comedy is watch it, watch lots of it. Notice what the rhythms are, what the tools are, how it's structured. Just consume. If you want to be a great chef, you've got to eat shit. I mean, no, don't eat shit. But you have to eat, right? You have to love eating food before you can be a great cook. So consume funny writing. Yeah. And the other thing is to find or become aware of your authentic voice. That's the most important thing. Listen to the way you talk and see if you can make that the way, or base the way you write on the way you talk.
I have one practical tip which I've only started employing recently, and that is when you've written something, I use the text-to-voice function on my laptop. And it's sort of awful. It's like this robotic, metallic voice telling me what I've just written. But I can hear the problems. I can hear,
by
okay, that doesn't work.
Hearing it out loud.
Yeah, hearing it out loud. It is such a clever thing to do. It's probably, even if you're like writing a job application, it's probably worth listening to it. That was I do that religiously now.
Wow.
It's really good. I think you can do it on your phone.
Does it not work if you just read it out loud to yourself? Is it different?
No, it's really different. Like, so I'll write something, and then I might, I don't know, do the dishes or something, and I'll play it back to myself, and I'll go, oh no, that sentence gets lost, or that's not great what I said there, or what? I don't understand what I mean. So then I'll go back and edit. I only edit very lightly, but I do that now.
That's amazing.
It's a really good tip.
Top tip.
Yeah.
But the other thing is less practical, and practical tips are, I think, probably really helpful. But just don't wait for permission. Just don't wait to be asked, because I did. But also, you have to believe in your ability. You have to. It's an enormous act. Writing humour or any kind of writing, it's an enormous act of faith in yourself. You've got faith in yourself that what you've written is worth reading, and then you have to have faith in the person reading it. And then, if you're writing commercially, you have to have an editor who has faith in you. So it's a faith relationship, and if you don't have that fundamental self-belief, you're not going to be able to come out of the blocks very fast. And I don't know how you teach self-belief. It's taken me a long time. But you need that. Just turn off the trolls in your head. And just start. That's what I would say. Thank you.
All right, let's see what the questions are here from the floor. Ian, wait for the microphone.
I've got a loud voice.
No, I know, but some people might not have loud ears, so let's just wait for the microphone.
Just following on from the waiting for the trolls to leave you that you were saying, I'm one of the blokes that really enjoys female humorous writing, particularly the three people we've got here. But I look to see more female stand-up, and I don't see that. And I've promoted comedy locally, and I know other promoters who've tried to get more women into the lineups. Is there anything you think that's behind that?
Oh,
You'd be best placed to answer that one.
Yeah. It's very strong in Auckland and Wellington. The community stroke industry in Auckland and Wellington is, I would say now, 50-50 gender split, plus some non-binary and transgender comedians now as well, which is fabulous. So in terms of, so you're talking about getting local people here?
About this experience.
Right. Okay. So, well, the best way to get women into doing stand-up is to invite them. Madness. And make them feel very welcome. Particularly, we do workshops for women to support each other, network with each other. There's really good Facebook groups for women comedians. So we can share knowledge, contacts, where gigs are, all of those things, and then just create a space that is not antagonistic and aggressive, which I know happens. Green rooms can be very blokey, and we all need to be better at policing that and making people who aren't men welcome in those otherwise potentially aggressive spaces.
thank you.
I have a question that follows on from that, so maybe you and I should talk. But this is for you, Michèle. So I do plenty of speaking in public. I've got material that I've written, and I've set a goal for myself this year to do stand-up. My friend is often the MC and keeps saying, come along, and I'm like, oh, no, I need to take the dog to obedience classes, or, there's all these excuses. How do I get over the mindset of just going and giving it a go the first time?
Do whatever it is that you do that you would be more ashamed of not turning up than you are fearful of turning up. So invite some people to be there. I think that's what they tell addicts, right? You can't deal with addiction by yourself. You have to tell people that you're dealing with addiction, because then you've got everybody else pressuring you. So get some people to pressure you to get you there. And
preferably people who find me funny.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The good and kind people. The people that who will love you even if you really screw up.
Yeah.
And you won't, because everybody's first gig, can I tell you a secret? Everybody's first gig is terrific. Oh. It's your second gig that'll be shit.
Like books sometimes.
Yeah, so go do that first gig. It'll be fabulous. There'll be so much adrenaline. People will be gracious and generous with you. It will be wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, I think when Leah was saying, don't wait for permission, you were also speaking directly to her, weren't you? Like, yes.
Can I just also say, anytime anybody really wants to do something, I suspect that they have at least some of the ability and skills that they need to do it. You don't have a desire to do something based on nothing. Mm-hmm. Stack the room with your friends. Yeah.
Let's go to the question here. Thank you.
Thank you both for a wonderful panel. This is for Michèle. So you reminded us that you do a side-by-side column. Can you tell us more about how that works?
Yeah. So I've been doing it writing a weekly column for nearly 11 years now, and they noticed at Fairfax that I was writing a lot about gender politics, and some people were not happy about that. So they said, what we probably need is a male voice to balance it, because women are just everywhere. So, and they came up with it, so that was the message, and the editor at the time came up with the idea that it could be my husband Jeremy, who is also a comedian and writer. And so, and we explained that we will never disagree with each other, because if we disagreed we wouldn't be married, happily. And so the way it works is that we usually decide on Sunday what we'd like to write about, and then we don't talk about it anymore, or maybe we do have a column, and then we don't look at each other's column until 5 to 5 on Monday, and sometimes one of us will make some changes because we've said the same thing in the same way. So that's how that works. Does that make sense? Yeah. I resent now having to share what I'm going to write my column about with somebody else. I mean, I love him and he's great. But I used to really love sitting down on Monday morning with a 5 o'clock deadline and just be inside my own head with no one to say it's going to be about. Because sometimes the joy of writing is this column is going to be about a cup. And by the time 5 o'clock comes, it's actually about a carafe.
That's one thing I love about both your work, actually, and your columns, Leah. I'm never really sure, like where it starts, I'm never really sure where it's going to end, and I mean that as a great compliment.
Yeah. That's the Simpsons style of writing. You know how...
Is that right?
Yeah, the Simpsons... so I'm talking a lot. But every episode of The Simpsons, if you're looking for it, you'll see that the first 3-4 minutes of The Simpsons is about... it's a complete story in itself that has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the episode. I love that structure.
I'll make sure to watch more of it. Right, I think we've got time for one more question before you all head out towards the University Bookshop table to buy your books, which Michèle and Leah will be available to sign. Let's go for the last question.
Hi there, ladies. Thanks very much for your talk. It's been really entertaining. And Leah, I'm Renee from Palmerston North.
Renee! Renee is a writer. Renee.
And I just wanted to ask how long it takes you ladies to put your columns together.
Yeah, it's a good question. So Emily Simpson, my editor, she gave me some terrific advice when I started, and she said, write it once, write it quickly, write it once. Don't revise too much, don't sleep on it too much, because it's a bit like mixing cookie dough, you know. Don't over-fold it because the cookies will go rock hard. So what I try and do, in an ideal week, I'll sit down on a Monday after school drop-off, and I'm best in the mornings. I am not very good at writing in the afternoons. And ideally, in a good week, I will have it finished by lunchtime. So it doesn't always go that way because the fact is I don't have a lot of material on Monday. I usually have one image or maybe one line in my head, or one thing has happened that week that's sort of snagged and I've gone back and gone, there's something in that, you know. So it's quite threadbare. There's not a lot there. And then, I hope this happens to you, Michèle, I go into sort of a trance. So if anyone sort of wants to know what my creative process is, I sort of don't know. I'm sort of half in the room and half not in the room. Just on a good week, it will just flow. And you never know where it's going to end. The only thing I'm really religious about is I watch the clicker at the bottom so I know how many words. And I always file 800. Always. Never
exactly
more, never
800.
less. Yeah. I'm really, that's my little compulsion. Yeah. So Mondays can be a really good day. Mondays can be a really scary day.
Yeah. Exactly the same. Yeah. I don't have a school run, but apart from that, yeah. And I don't know how long it really takes. I just, because I'm not there when I'm doing it. You know what I mean? It's great. I've never spoken to a columnist before. Yeah. That's good to know. And people can walk into my office. My office is in my house, but Jeremy might come in and say, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And I go, Portugal, and I don't know that he's been there. Wow, it's a lovely feeling. It's beautiful. It's flow, isn't it? That's what they call it, flow. The philosophers call it flow. You've got to have it somehow. Some people do it jogging, some people do it sailing, some people do it, I don't know how other people do it, but that is flow. Everyone needs that moment of flow. My only other trick is that once it's finished, before I send it, I close it and I leave the room. Oh, wow. And go, hang out the washing, chop an onion, I don't know what the fuck I do, but move physically around and not think about it. And while I'm doing that, the right word, it shouldn't have been asbestos, it should have been whatever, I don't know what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. So once I've tricked my brain into thinking it's finished, then my brain will go, you forgot to say the thing that would have been really good. So I go back and open it and fix it and then send it. Thank you. And then delete, so fuck you. And then yes. Always delete that at the end.
And this is the end. It's been a lovely session. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the Dunedin Writers and Readers Festival for having Michèle and Leah here to entertain us all. Thank you to the University Bookshop for selling their books outside that you were about to go and get signed. Thank you, the audience, for being here and supporting it.
Thank you, Liz. You're awesome.
Liz.
That was
Thank
great.
you very much.
Oh, very good.
This Dunedin Writers and Readers Festival recording was brought to you with funding from a Copyright Licensing New Zealand grant and with the support of OAR FM. The festival receives help from many corners, but we'd like to give special thanks to our major funders, Creative New Zealand, the Dunedin City Council, the Otago Community Trust and the Lion Foundation.